child, uh, most of the kids, as early as 6 months, they will start showing some emotions. Okay, so the child is crying when it is hungry. That's an emotion, all right, but that is a basic cry or it is a hunger cry. But after a little while, the child can actually show anger in its cry. It can show sadness. It can show fear. So usually in the first 6 months of life, the emotions are shown in the child, and the child can show fear at about 6 months or so, and by about 1.5 years it peaks. So prior to it, the child doesn't have much fear. Okay, the child might startle with loud noise, but then if you're continuously giving that loud noise, then the child might get startled often, but it may not have what we say specifically as fear. Okay, it could be just a response to that startled noise. But the child does show anger, and when it is not picked up, when it is crying and nobody picks up, the child shows anger, and the child also might show joy. You can see just about 2.5 to 3 months old child, if you start tickling the child, it will laugh very loudly. So that joy is there in a small child, as small as just about 3 months. Okay, so you can say that from there onwards the emotions have started showing, but by 6 months of life it is definitely evident. Then the child does not have any stranger anxiety till about 8 months. So anybody picks up, the child is okay generally. But from between 9 and 12 months, the child will start showing fear and wariness of strangers. And this again depends on the social context. And then as the child is growing older, let's say the child is now becoming 2 years plus and then preschool. So the child can also start becoming self-conscious. Okay, so there are self-conscious emotions. So when you say nice things to a child, the child can look happy or blushed also. And then again depends on the society standards and rules. The preschoolers usually can show complex emotions like love, jealousy, unhappiness, envy. They can do it without any verbal contribution, or they can verbally also show their anger, and they can show love and unhappiness. Then pride, shame, embarrassment and guilt also comes in the preschoolers. I am talking about a child who is just about 2.5, 3 years to about 4 to 5 years. Okay, and then as they grow older, they are able to now reflect on their emotions. Okay, and usually they are egocentric. I am talking about up till about 5 years, but they can be cooperative and they may show concern for others, and they may also show what we use the term empathy, that is, they understand the mother or the father's emotions or other children's emotions as well to some extent. Okay, so as they grow older, I am talking about early childhood, that is after 3, so between something like preschooler as well as a little older child, middle childhood, let's say. So there is increased emotional understanding and balance of emotion is also there in slightly older child, around 6 years or so. Anxiety and fears are seen. The child can also get a moral sense of right and wrong, so conscience is also developing, and sibling rivalry is very common. Now at this point of time, that is just about 5 years plus, the child can take an account of events leading to emotional reactions. The child can also develop capacity for genuine empathy and understanding. They might show concern if somebody is hurt, and it doesn't have to be sympathy. It can be that they might actually put themselves in that situation and say, what if I also get hurt, and then they show the similar emotions. Can suppress or conceal negative emotional reactions as they're growing older. If they're hurt about something, so a 7 or 8 year old child need not show it because it is trying to bottle them up inside. And as they grow older, they can also cope with stress and negative feelings. I'm talking about childhood, which is something like up till about 8 to 9 years. Okay. Now there is also a little bit of understanding about the child's temperament and also the attachment part. Okay. So this comes a little bit scientifically and psychologically. So there has been this particular person called Chesson Thomas. They basically said that the child is, now we are all born with a certain temperament. It is not like the parents are responsible for the child's temperament. The child is born with that temperament. So that is something like very hereditary. So very much possible that the father has a certain temperament. The child may have similar traits, or a mother has a certain temperament. The child may have similar traits. So they have defined the child into different categories, and they said easy child, difficult child, slow to warm up child. Okay, now these are the three categories they have given, but apart from that you can also find that all the kids will not go into either of the category completely. So the child could also be an in-between child who might be easy at times and difficult at times, okay, and sometimes slow to warm up also. So that is a fourth classification. But an easy child usually shows a lot of positive mood. So right from the time the child is small, you can remember the child was always generally gurgling, making sounds, attracting people, and was not really very cranky. Okay, and this child will also have a good adjustment as the child grows up as an adult. A child may be very difficult, crying all the time, okay, irregular routines, doesn't follow even after 6 months to 8 months, does not have a proper sleep routine, and this child will have difficulty in accepting new experiences and reacts negatively. So all the time the child is more cranky and angry. Okay, this child will have lot of adjustment problems as an adult. Then there's another child who's slow to warm up, takes long to kind of get used to people and has a low activity level, but somewhat negative, but not as difficult as all the time cranky, but at the same time might show a lot of low intensity mood. Now a child who has a good emotional control is also well adjusted as an adult. Now when I say good emotional control, I am not saying about a child who suppresses emotions. A child who is able to express emotions and at the same time doesn't carry on that lingering feeling of anger or sadness throughout. Okay, so if the child has done something, the mother has shouted, the child has felt upset about it, but after a little while he's alright. So that child is much more well adjusted because he is able to cope up with both kind of emotions, whether it is positive and negative. Then coming to attachment, it's very, very important that we understand what attachment is and the need for attachment. Okay, so we know that usually a child is attached with the parents. Now there are times that a child may not show attachment, or a child is angry with the mother or the caregiver and shows a lot of detachment to the caregiver, or sometimes even shows anger, or sometimes the child clings to the parent or the caregiver but does not really get comforted. Okay, so attachment is very important, especially in the early years, and that would actually be a foundation for psychological development later on. Okay, so I am coming become little academic here, but then it's important that we understand that the child who is securely attached will always find that he or she would be able to explore the environment without much of a fear. Okay, because he knows the caregiver is around. Okay, so that's very important. Typical problems that we come across, some of these are of course very psychiatry based or psychological based, but then these are the disorders that we usually come across. As one is autism, then ADHD you might have heard of, a child with poor intelligence, a child with a learning difficulty, a child with emotional problems, and then those can be sadness, anger, etc. A child who has low self-confidence and poor social skills, a child with behavioral issues, and a child with health problems. But many times the child can also be throwing a temper tantrum. So normally we say that avoid cajoling the child at that point of time, because then the child will continue doing it, and every time use that, because once you try to cajole the child, or because the child is throwing a temper tantrum, immediately give the child what he is asking for. So then the child will get used to using that as a strategy to get things from you. So some of these things you need to be a little bit judicious there. But then having said that, of late we've been hearing a lot about like don't let the child cry too much, don't let the child feel that you are neglecting him and you are not really responding to them. So sometimes you need to also understand if the process has gone too long, then maybe you need to curtail it somewhere, deviate the child from that particular situation, distract them from that situation and take them to another situation, so that that particular the stalemate which is going on, the child has been crying for hours or going on hitting somebody or generally not listening. So those kind of things you can actually try to change them out from the thing. Sometimes the child can really, really irritate you. So you have no this thing, but you actually will hit the child. I'm not saying that one spanking or two spankings are bad for the child, Okay, if you can justify saying, yeah, the child really irritated me, so I did that. But avoid as much as possible. But then we can always use other ways. That okay, if you don't do this, or if you do this, I'm not going to talk to you. If you say that if you do this, I am not going to allow you to watch TV. Or if you do this, I am not going to take you to the park next week. So some of these things can actually serve as stopping of those behaviors. So what we use the term basically operant conditioning based. So you reward the child whenever the child has done something good. You withdraw the reward when the child is behaving in a bad manner. So it is not always hitting the child as punishment. The punishment can also be when you withdraw something which was attractive to the child. So the child was looking forward to that, going to that movie or going to the park or something after a few days, but the child has been behaving badly. So you say, fine, I set a moratorium. If you don't stop this behavior, I am not going to take you. And you keep your word. Then you don't, kind of go back on it, because then the child will think, oh, this, he doesn't mean business. So you need to mean business then. You need to be a little stern on those things. So try to, it is not like bartending really, but at the same time, there is a lot of such behavior happens that the child has to do something to earn what he is doing. Of late, I am finding it very difficult to actually look at, what is happening is most of the parents, and I would not say normal, but then otherwise, especially the kids that I see, autistic kids, the parents have got them used to mobile phones. Okay? You won't believe a 2.5 to 3-year-old child can actually open the phone, go to the YouTube video or go to the stored video and watch it, repeat it, or even play a game. Right? Even I would not know so many things in the phone, but they would know everything, or on an iPad or on the laptop. Why are the parents doing it? Because they are busy, or the child has to be occupied with something, or they find that, oh, the child won't eat unless I give him the phone. So that becomes an excuse. Right? So you are giving the phone a lot. Phone or any other thing like laptop or iPad. Now this is, what is it doing to these kids especially? It is internalizing them more and more. So they are not having an interaction with somebody else. So there is no social interaction. The child learns that he or she is following only that, or even watching a lot of TV. Okay, so the child is only internalizing things. Child is not having a real contact with human beings, and these children actually withdraw more and more into shell because of that. Now for other kids who do not have that problem, but still you are getting them used to a lot of mobile, especially because of the lockdown, there was no way to go play, so you gave them, or because of the classes you gave it to them, or because it's attractive, you see something, and then when you see all those apps, colorful apps, even if the child doesn't know anything, he will get attracted, or they can hear that okay, music can come out of that, or something else can come out. So that in natural curiosity the child wants to get it, and these are addictive. So what you can do is, since the child has got used to it, and sometimes it is imperative that you have no other, because when number of times when I pointed out to some parents also, they said no, because we came here, so I gave, or because I'm talking about even other this thing that no, we were coming, so we wanted to talk to you, so I gave the phone, or it was because we were traveling, I gave the phone, or because there was no other game here, so we gave the phone. Anything it could be, or because I'm attending that. I have a student who has a child, so she said she gives it to the child. So when I said that don't give it, so she said no ma'am, because I have to attend the class. They are making a noise that why are you not giving the phone? They might cry, they might roll on the ground, but you have decided you will not give the phone more than half an hour. You have decided, so you will not give it. That's it. And in such a situation, if that happens, maybe you should reduce your phone use in front of them. See, another thing is, sometimes we have a fight with our wife, or wife has a fight with the husband. She might shout at the other child, or she might beat the other child, or somebody else is beating. So the child picks up a lot from what they watch around them. So we need to be very careful about our behaviors. Now, if I want the child to cut down TV, I have to cut down my TV. Simple. Right? But what I can do is, I can make the child look at channels which are educative, which are giving some knowledge, and also which are sometimes entertaining. So you don't have to always put them only on Discovery Channel. You can give them Cartoon Network, but understand, if you put them Cartoon Network for 2 hours or 3 hours, they will be starting talking like Noddy. Okay, they will not talk normally, because that's what they are learning. So we need to understand that we need to judiciously cut down what we can, and many times we are also doing it because we ourselves do not have time. We are busy, we are occupied, we do not have that kind of time to spend with the child. So just to overcome our own guilt as well as this, kind of, it's something that I can't do anything about it, right? I am stressed about it, I am also guilty about it, so I overcome it by doing this. So that we need to cut down. Stop feeling guilty. You have no reason to feel guilty just because you are working somewhere and you are not able to spend the whole day with the child doesn't mean that you need to feel guilty. Yes, maybe you can ask your mother to look after, you can ask your mother-in-law to look after, you can, if it is possible, you can get a babysitter, you can monitor them and do it. Okay, so don't feel guilty that I am not able to spend time, so let me compensate by giving more gifts to the child, or giving more chocolates to the child, or giving a phone to the child. Okay, which happens very often. Very smart. Don't underestimate their intelligence. Same way, if you have shouted and your husband has said, "Oh, mama is bad, come let's go hit mama." I mean, it may be playful. Okay. Now the child can use it actually against you, and every time you say something, he will actually go and say, "Mama, mama did this, so papa go and hit her, or daddy go and hit her." Okay, or okay, let it be not between the two of you. Let's say it is your mother-in-law or mother who pampers the child. So if you shout at the child, she will immediately say, "Why?" She will not stop saying that I should do when my child is not around. She will shout at you in front of the child only. Okay, or you may have shouted at the child and she will immediately take the child to her lap and, "Oh, there's mama is bad, mama did this." She may not mean anything, but the child knows that he can play against you, right? So we have to be careful about our consistency in behavior with the child and the consistency in disciplining in the child. So if you are trying to curtail something, you have to tell your mother-in-law, "Okay, Amma, I'm trying to do this. Please, at this point of time, you don't say anything to the child. You need not take him and, this thing. You need not shout. But at the same time, don't, give him too much of affection at that point of time, because then the child takes that advantage." Okay, I know it's very difficult, but somehow you need to try and bring it in. This tussle always goes on, so there's nothing new about that. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So let's just come. I'll just talk about managing the kids. If there are any questions, I'll take after that. So basically, first and foremost thing we have to understand is we have to discipline them in a consistent manner. So whatever a husband says, the wife should follow. The wife says, the in-laws should follow. The in-laws say the wife and the husband should follow. Identify the problem behaviors. I have already given you a pointer, so you can look for those if there are any such things, and also look at what is magnifying it and what is maintaining it. So as I said, guests are there, so that is being maintained. The child is throwing a temper tantrum. The minute the child asks for something, you were giving it all this while because you didn't want the child to cry, or the mother-in-law says, "No, the child is crying, give whatever he wants." Now the child is growing up, you want to bring in a discipline, but now the child has got used to getting what he wanted. So when he doesn't get, he starts crying, shouting, hitting, biting, spitting, whatever bad behaviors he can do, because the child has not learned the right way of expressing. So if you say, "No, you have a problem, you come and talk to me." So a younger child who doesn't have speech can do some things we can understand, but an older child who has speech should come and properly tell you, "Amma, I want this, okay, or I need this, or I want to buy, I want to go there," or something. So then the parent should make them understand, okay, this is possible, this is not possible. Now understand, a very small child will have a very low frustration tolerance. That means what they wanted, they want it. Okay, you cannot delay. Now let's say a small baby, when it's hungry, can you say that, "Baby, I will give you milk after 2 hours? You cannot, right? But the same child, when it becomes 3 years and wants milk, so you will say, "Okay, wait for 2 minutes, I am heating it up, I will give it to you." So the child will wait for those 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, or if the child is 5 years, he wants a certain sweet or a certain dessert or a certain kind of food, you say, "Okay, wait, I will make it, give me half an hour," and maybe you can keep engaging him or her in that way. The child will wait. So what has happened over the years, the child has learned to delay the gratification, but a small child will not, a hyperactive child will not. Okay, a child who has been thoroughly pampered, suddenly you say that, "No, I will not give you today, I will give you tomorrow." Why will he listen? So you need to understand what has been the situation which has magnified it or maintained it. Okay, and every time the child throws a temper tantrum, you keep on cajoling the child and you say, no, 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 please don't do it, or you shout at the child. Nothing of that sort is going to help. Instead, if you can ignore the child for a little while, tell the child, if you behave like this, I am not listening. I'm talking about a slightly older child, okay, not a 2-year-old child alone. But you can ignore the child for a little while. Keep him in a place where there is nothing to break. Okay, so the child can be left alone, nothing will happen. But make sure that you come back to the child after some time, whatever time that you've designated, and then you explain to the child if the child is willing to listen. Okay. Then a lot of anger children talk about. So exercise, make the child exercise. How to neutralize your child's anger? You can make the child do a lot of running, jumping, cycling, etc. So this first thing is, positive thing is, it increases the brain function and happiness, and also diverts the child, especially the physical activity levels will bring down, and as the activity goes on, it will bring down the child's anger as well. And let the child say what is it that you are feeling. Okay, so rather than simply just show it in anger, say what you want to say. Okay, curb electronics, so phones, etc. Teach that anger is a signal, not an outcome. So find out why the child is angry, and also collaborate with the child. Okay, let's do this and see how it works. Let's do that and work. So try to divert, try to get into something new. Look for comorbid conditions, as I just now mentioned all these things. It could be also that the child has not been eating properly, and so the child is angry, or the child has been ridiculed in the class, or so the child is angry. So find out what are the reasons for the child's anger. So keep notes. Do not have to hit the child always. Okay, be the boss and talk it out with the child. So don't just let it be, okay, let him be, I will not say anything. Talk it out with the child and find out, okay. Then some fun ways to work on emotional knowledge. Many times what happens is the child doesn't know exactly how to express emotions. So you can actually, do a lot of face making and grimaces, and then I let the child identify what feeling it is, and then what they can do with their feelings throughout the day. So ask them what happened. Okay, so now that you can't go outside, you are angry, or so what can we do to make you feel better? So can we do some exercise or some game in the house? When you're asked, and then you must read a lot of stories to the child. Ask your kids about what the character is feeling, what they think the character is feeling. And then also during the meal time, also get a feeling check-in and say, okay, what feeling that you had that day. And then tell them, you also should know that people should have feelings. So the children also should have their feelings. And if they are comfortable, sometimes it will be comfortable, but then the feeling is that negative feeling is not going to last forever. So maybe after some time you'll feel a little better. So feeling hard feelings is also all right. Okay, and you can make believe different emotional situations with dolls and puppets, and then you can actually show the child in that particular direction. Okay. So children who are they show all emotions, so we need to understand that, and we need to also appreciate whenever they are showing positive emotions. Another thing which is very important, you have to understand that 0 to 8 years, or even during the pregnancy, the child's brain is developing at a very fast rate. Okay, so the maximum stimulation that you should give, that would help. And also the brain is still developing, so the brain is also susceptible to a lot of negative influences. So if you beat the child, if you hurt the child, even if you emotionally hurt the child, that also will get embedded somewhere. So we need to obviously bring them up with lot of care. At the same time, we also have to make sure that their brain development, which is occurring, which is the maximum at that point of time, we also need to stimulate the brain in the maximum ways. Having said that, I'm also saying that as a parent, don't push your child too much. Just because I could not do something when I was young, so I want my child to do it. Yes, I want to give the best to my child, but at the same time, I cannot put a small child into karate, as well as into dance, as well as into tennis, as well as into the child also has to study and get first in the class, and also into debate competitions. It's a small child. It's only one child. You cannot divide the child into so many activities at the same time. So understand there should be a limit. Be realistic there, and understand that the child also needs to rest. The child also will get tired. Okay, so your enthusiasm is fine, but don't overdo it with the child. Okay.
So I just want to I treat from a teacher's perspective. I am no medical professional or a trained psychiatrist, but these are more observations of what we attempt to do in a world of environment, right? Especially with psychological and emotional disorders and terms, if you ever feel either anxious or at a loss as a parent, seeing what should I term this behavior, is it just sheer naughtiness or there is some emotional distraught behavior behind it, or is it a disorder? Typically what we do as teachers and what we recommend to parents is observe before you conclude, right? Parents carry a lot of anxiety telling, is it ADHD? But we are not equipped to tell it is ADHD. You will approach a medical professional, but please observe, and observe much before we reach conclusions. Don't judge, don't conclude. Not only because it is some moral thing, but you might be either over concluding or under concluding. So observe it holistically. So let's take an example. Child has suddenly turned very naughty, right? He was very open to doing chores, suddenly saying no to everything. Or she was very agreeable in meal times, suddenly doesn't want anything. Now, the observation need not be only about that task, what is happening. You know, as world of, we don't start preaching morally, you should be doing this. We don't label, you're a good girl, you're a nice boy if you do this, right? So what do we do? Observe holistically. How is, like doctor said, how is the bedwetting behavior? How is the bedtime behavior? How is outside play behavior? Actually write down your observations, and only over time can we come to any conclusion when we observe together with maybe professionals, right? That will also calm you down, because along the way we usually get some answers if they are not really disorders and something just happened. Like doctor mentioned, a fight between parents might have triggered something. A movie might have triggered something else. It might be disconnected to the behavior, but it is showing here. And only when we see it holistically can we even start to unravel that puzzle. So that is one. Consistency in behavior, I think doctor has spoken completely. Our own behaviors, our gestures, harmony between family members. There are times when you as a parent might have to let go of your belief in parenting of a particular thing if your in-laws are not okay with it. Yes, convince them. Yes, reason with them. There are times when you will not go through the battle. The better thing to do is keep harmony in the house than make it a constant battle. It is okay if that particular belief doesn't happen for the child and another way of bringing up is happening, than constantly be at loggerheads. That is more harmful for the child. If they are really not budging for whatever reason, you are not able to win, let go. That's more useful for a child than try the battle. The stimulation versus boredom. I know a lot of things we do in terms of the fancy toys we give, taking out, giving attention, has to do with stimulation. One is, yes, guilt that we might not be giving time, but also wanting to do more. I hear this word, which is what we did not get in childhood, I don't want to deprive my child of. Scarcity is a beautiful thing for children. Boredom, only increases imagination. I'm not saying leave them bored the whole day, but we have seen that unfinished toys, self-play are good things. So if we let go of that insecurity that we have to plan every hour of the day and engage them with something, it usually reduces the tantrums of screens as you move away from screens. I know doctor said half an hour to 1 hour. As the school head of academics, if you are taking admission here, I'm going to ask 0. I'm sorry for this, because that half an hour will become 1 hour when they turn 7.
I'm talking from experience, because
yes,
I know it's just not possible to say completely cut it out.
It is not realistic to say. I understand the uphill battle. When I say cut off screens, I'm not imagining that you'll go home and you make a decision.
At the same time, there's a lot of positives also can come from the screen if the parent is sitting with the child and actually making the child understand a few things which are good in the screen. Yeah. So I'm not saying...
So our alternative is, yes, sit with them, engage the senses. Yes, you have all these ways of engaging the senses through food, through colors, through materials, through walks. Even if you are extremely busy parent and can only spend 1 hour a day with the child, make that 1 hour count. Switch off your phone, take a book, read to them, listen to them, tell about their day, let them show you something they made which is super simple, and engage them. And that becomes, when a consistent rhythm is followed, that becomes the time when they open up to you and tell what they're feeling, why they're not happy with something, what they can ask for. All the processing happens. Last thing, for emotions, a good way is to validate emotions. So doctor spoke about telling, okay, you're not allowed to go out, so what will make you happy? Also validate your own emotions. Yes, we are all human, we get irritated, we lose it sometimes. But validating that emotion
and labeling the emotion also.
Labeling, telling I was irritated, I was feeling fatigued, or I didn't know how to help you, so I shouted, is very good. They learn those emotional vocabulary when we accept and we start. You can tell, I understand you're disappointed because I'm not letting you go out. That word again and again will tell them that we know that we are depriving them of something. It is slowly over time they will realize, okay, this is not a mean father or a evil mother trying to deprive me or make me feel sad, right? That words of wicked or something don't come. They understand that we see their pain, and their pain is valid if something is taken away.